Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back into the Prospect Corner presented by the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and joined in again by my two prospect experts, Peter Baracchini and Greg Boysen. How you guys doing this week?
Doing great. Doing good. Tired, but hey, Saturday is a day to just relax,
Yeah, feeling under the weather last week, but back in the hosting chair here, and let's get going here. First, just to remind you, our show this week is being brought to you by the Hockey Writers Olympics coverage, both the men's and women's coverage here at the Hockey Writers. 3 solid weeks of wall-to-wall coverage of both women's and men's Olympic tournaments, roster, player analysis, game previews, recaps, all that stuff we'll be having on the Hockey Writers already. Our roster previews and rosters have been released. There's articles on most of the teams already. So if you're watching Olympics hockey, make sure you're tuned into the Hockey Writers because we've got tons of stuff going on throughout the weeks of the Olympics, which are happening in Beijing. So stay tuned for all that coverage at the Hockey Writers. And speaking of the Olympics, we're going to talk about the prospects heading there because there's going to be quite a few going from the NHL prospects draft, stuff like that. So let's start with that. Start with you, Peter, on this. Pretty excited to see. I mean, there's a lot of guys that probably wouldn't be there if there was NHL players going. Who are you looking forward to see?
Yeah, I mean, too many names to count, but I think most likely, and this has been from the beginning or from the rumors that he may be going and representing Canada, is Mason McTavish. This is a prospect that started up in the NHL this year, played 9 games, had a stint in the AHL, went back to the OHL, dominated for 5 games before being traded to the Hamilton Bulldogs, continued to dominate there with 7 points in 3 games. So in 8 games, he already has 14 points in the OHL combined. And let's not forget that he was also a standout for the 2 games for Team Canada at the World Juniors. So it's a really great chance for him to showcase his talent, playing at a senior level in AHL and NHL already. He has some of that experience. Being a leader on Team Canada has some of that experience. And even though he's going to be a younger player, he's going to be relied on heavily. So for him to go into the senior tournament with that kind of expectations and with the level of consistency that he's played at, I just think it just shows volumes to his character, his potential, and his ability as a player. So he's one player that I'm looking forward to, and let's be realistic. There's a good possibility that he can already be 2/3 of the way to a triple gold club if he's successful in winning a gold medal here, winning a gold medal at the World Juniors. All he's missing is just that World Hockey Championship. So it's going to be really enticing for him.
Yeah, McTavish has been he's been pretty amazing. He's played everywhere this year. I mean, it seems like there's no league that he hasn't played in. AHL, NHL, dub. I mean, it's amazing how much he's played already. Greg, I'll go to you. Who are you most excited to see in this Olympics tournament without the NHL players here?
Well, I'm going to be a homer a lot this week, but I'm looking forward to see what Drew Commesso can do for Team USA, the Blackhawks goaltending prospect. He's a guy that they took in the 2nd round a couple years ago. It was the pick they got from the Vegas Knights for Robin Leonard. So they definitely are high hopes on him. Anytime you invest a 2nd round pick on a goaltender, you're obviously think a lot of him. And when you just look at his college numbers, nothing jumps off the page. But when it comes to goaltenders, you can't, especially young goaltenders, you can't judge them basically based on just looking at their record and their stats. There's a lot that goes into it. And he looked really good in his one game at the World Juniors before that was postponed. I mean, a lot of us Blackhawk fans were thinking that was going to be his coming out party, and that game against Slovakia certainly looked like that's where it was. They Team USA doesn't win that game without the performance that Commesso put up. So he's one of 3 goaltenders going. He's going to be with a couple of other veterans, so it's going to be interesting to see if he gets any starts at all, but hopefully he can earn his way to make maybe be the number 1 by the end of that tournament. But that's who I want to see. I want to see him get in there. This would be a big step up from his nightly college opponents, even though there's going to be a lot of guys that he faces, but most of those guys are on his team. But it'd be interesting to see how he does against some of these grizzled vets, from the European leagues and stuff like that. So that's who I want to see. Hopefully he gets, more than just 1 or 2 starts. But that's going to be based on his play. But as someone who covers the Blackhawks and as a Blackhawks fan, that's who I want to see.
Yeah. Commesso, it's unfortunate he wasn't able to get the World Juniors there, but the Olympics are the next best thing, probably better to see what he can do. So definitely good. McTavish is OHL, not WHL, so I just want to fact check myself there. I'm excited to see Matty Beniers. I mean, I've talked about him before. To see him on Team USA in this type of tournament, he's dominated at other levels. World Juniors and World Championships, stuff like that. And, the Olympics are just the next biggest thing for him. And, his leadership, he's going to be a big part of that Team USA team and be a leader there, even though there's going to be some other veterans there that have been in the NHL before, that have played there and succeeded. But he's going to be a big part anyway. He's not going to be a guy that's just going to be in the background. I think he's going to be a big part. Which is going to go into the next question here. Who's going to have the most significant impact on their team? I mean, these prospects, a lot of them may not be the top guys on the team. There are some other guys that are going to see their time and their, because of their experience. Greg, we'll start with you. Who is going to have the most impact on that?
I'm going to go with the guy you just talked about, Matty Beniers. I think on Team USA, for the reasons you just said, this kid has shown at the University of Michigan. He showed at the World Juniors last year. He's a leader, and that's why the Seattle Kraken took him number 2. That's a big part of the reason why he was such a top prospect. Yes, he's a great player, but he's got that it factor, that future captain. Everything you hear about it, compared to some of those, some of the guys we hear about that are great leaders, like the Jonathan Taves and the Patrice Bergerons, those type of players. This is his chance to showcase that. And yeah, he's going to be on a team. Team USA has 15 current NCAA players on it, but they've also got some, veterans from the AHL for playing in Europe. So this is going to be his chance, his real first chance. It's easy for him to walk into a room full of teenagers and say, "Hi, I'm the leader." But when you're walking into a room that's got guys with NHL experience, guys that have won AHL MVPs, it's going to be a little more tougher for him to command that room and be the leader. But if this is the type of player he is, he's going to have to do that in an NHL locker room as a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old at some point. So this is going to be his first experience to really be like, I don't care about my age. This is my team. Hop on my back. Let's do it. And that's who I think he's going to have the most impact for his team out of all the prospects heading over to China.
Yeah. Beniers is just so good. And I'm just going to echo that before I go to Peter here. So that's my pick as well. I mean, Matty Beniers is just, I wish the Canucks would have been able to draft him, because he's just such a good all around player. And I just love him as a player, as a prospect. So definitely Beniers is going to have a big impact on Team USA. Peter, we'll finish this discussion with you. Who do you think will have a big impact on their team going to this Olympics here?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with one of Matty Beniers' teammates, but on a different team in Canada, and Owen Power. Mainly because of the fact that he has the experience at the World Hockey Championship, winning a gold medal and getting increasingly more minutes and ice time as the tournament progressed, helping Canada win a gold medal there. not a lot of standout names, obviously, because of no NHLers, but, Canada does have a really deep roster. They got some really great talent up front and on the back end. And bringing someone in like Owen Power with his mobility, with his size, with his experience, he has great he's very calm and he's got great composure whenever he's on the ice. We saw that when he was with Team Canada at the World Juniors, and, same situation as McTavish. He has an opportunity to be a part of a triple gold club at this point, and he would be able to do this and be a significant key piece and factor for Team Canada on the blue line, given his mobility and his dominance as a defenseman. So if he's able to come out swinging and flying like he did at the World Juniors, like he has with the University of Michigan this year, I see him being a really major factor for Team Canada, especially if he's going to be one of those major puck moving defensemen and eating all those tough minutes throughout the whole entire tournament. So yeah, Canada won bronze in Pyeongchang in 2018. If they win gold, expect Owen Power to be at the forefront of that. So that's going to be my pick, and mainly who's going to have a significant impact for the team going forward.
Yeah, Owen Power is my second pick because, he seems like an NHL defenseman already. And I think, when the Sabres actually get him over here in the NHL, he's going to be that second. I don't know. I think he may be better than Rasmus Dahlin in the end. But having those two big towers back there for the Sabres, they got their blue line set for years to come here. They just got to figure out their forward group, but their goaltending, but their defense, I think, is set.
I think you and I are going to get a call to start for Buffalo here in a couple of days. They're like down to nobody.
Yeah.
It's a minor. Right. It's a minor position. You don't need one of those guys. You'll be fine.
Yeah, they definitely need to address that somewhere. So let's finish off this Olympics with the ultimate question: who wins gold? I mean, it's going to be a little bit different this year because of all the different teams, and there's not really a clear favorite, I don't think. Quick fire here, Greg. Who's winning the gold?
As you mentioned, it's tough because these are a lot of makeshift teams that, a lot of guys that didn't know they were going to play until a couple of weeks ago. But I'm going to go with a repeat for Russia. I just look at their roster and they got a ton of experience, ton of NHL, KHL, professional experience, a lot of veterans. I think the experience wins out, and it's going to be a repeat for Russia or whatever they're calling themselves these days.
Peter, who you got for gold?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're looking at the top three of Canada, US, Russia. I think it's going to be those three. In what order? It's going to be really difficult because, like Greg mentioned, I mean, Russia's got, up front, star-studded lineup, and even like young names like Kirill Marchenko and Arseny Gritsyuk, who were in our top 100 prospects, have been lights out great for their respective teams this year. So I think it's going to be... Again, I too early to say. Obviously, I would have loved to have seen a Canada, US, or Canada, Russia final. I think it's going to be Canada, Russia. Who wins to be determined, because I think it's probably going to go to overtime, and that would be really exciting, intriguing, and it would give everyone a great run or their values worth, even though there are no NHL players, because it's two solid hockey nations, and this is essentially, basically their B team going forward. So. It's just gonna be exciting in general. I really can't wait. I'm hoping Canada has the edge, maybe, but it could go either way at this point.
Yeah, it's tough. Like I said before, there's just so many factors that are different than normal because there's no NHL stars there, and you could pick certain teams. I mean, even if there's NHL stars, I think there's just so much star power, and without them it's just interesting. So I mean, I don't know. I'm actually on the boat of Russia as well. I think Russia is a strong team that's going in here, but Canada Russia final would be really good. But again, don't count out teams like Finland and Sweden, because the one thing about Finland, they got all their guys from the European leagues and stuff. And they play that similar. I've said it before. If their style is just that hard work, they all seem to play the same, even if they are quote unquote stars in their in their league. They still play that hardworking, and just seem to surprise teams. So don't ever count out Finland. They could kind of sneak in there and be surprising, because like the last Olympics, who thought Germany was going to be in the final, right? So and then, without the NHL players, so you never know. But I'm still on that. I think Russia's going to be a big power in this. So I'm going Russia for a gold medal there. Canada is going to give them a fight though. So yeah, so that's the Olympics, and it's going to be fun to watch, and in the next week or two, and not just for hockey, but for all the events. And I just love the Winter Olympics in general, because I think I'm more excited for a lot more of the events than in the Summer Olympics. And Canada has a lot more of a chance to get a lot of medals than the summer. They seem to kind of be in the low end getting medals. So, but winter, they seem to get quite a few. So let's table that Olympic talk for a bit here, and let's go back to our draft talk. And Peter, you just released your first mock of the year here, and you know there's some interesting picks in your mock draft to 1.0 say about that. So let's start with that. Peter, give us the top 3 guys that went in that mock draft, and just give us a little bit about them.
Yeah, I just want to point out too that the positioning was up to date as of January 24th, the day that it was released. So if there were any movements in the standings afterwards, that's why. So keep in mind with that, if there are any people saying, oh, well, you know, Arizona is not second, they're now 5th. And it's like, okay, well, I made a point of that, so we're all good. But yeah, the top 3, I mean, it was going to come down to these 3 players. I mean, Montreal getting Shane Wright first overall, Arizona Coyotes second with Logan Cooley, and Seattle Kraken third overall with Simon Nemec. All the rankings based on points percentage as well, not actual points. So the fact that the Montreal Canadiens, you know, this is a year that's just been really hard to forget, or they would like to forget. I mean, it's just been an absolute mess with injuries. Obviously, they've had their issues with COVID as well as many other teams. But to have that fall from grace from going to the Stanley Cup final, no Carey Price, no Shea Weber, they were in a significant hole, and they needed players to step up. And you didn't quite get that same locker room mentality or drive that they had during that run. I mean, Cole Caulfield is not looking like Cole Caulfield at this point. But if there's one thing to look forward to, it is Shane Wright. He is a excellent, strong two-way pivot, great awareness, high IQ, excellent playmaking, hard shot. And these are the qualities that you want in a top-line center, and probably not, major franchise altering like a McDavid or Matthews, but he's going to be a high-end, elite-level kind of player. And we've seen that with the play of Patrice Bergeron, who now everyone's starting to find that comparisons and draw that two-way play to. So there's that for the Montreal Canadiens. Arizona Coyotes just, miss out and get the second best center in this draft with Logan Cooley. So, I mean, he exactly the same kind of play style as Shane Wright, but I think he plays with a bit more bite, a little bit more aggressiveness. He likes to get in on the forecheck, and I mean, this is not to say that Shane Wright doesn't, but in terms of more playing the body, I think Cooley has that advantage going for him as well, but both really smart. And then Simon Nemec, I mean, I'm just been a huge fan of him for the last few years, and he just continues to impress right now. I believe he scored his first goal at the senior level for Slovakia. So he just continues to produce. And the fact that, he may not be the top defender, I think he is. He's 23 points in 32 games. Excellent playmaker, because, 98% of his points at this point are all assists, 1 goal. Just excellent vision, positioning. He for a 17-year-old, he shows no fear. He does everything with such conviction and such composure and poise every single time that he's on the ice. So the fact that he's already playing this kind of mentality and this kind of play style at 17 years old, I think that he hasn't even reached his potential yet. And I think he's only going to get better and continue to grow as a prospect. So that rounds out my top 3, and they're probably going to be in my top 3 throughout the foreseeable future, because I think that for me, that's already set in stone.
Yeah, I'd say those three are pretty much. I think that's a big. I said definitely those two. Nemec, I don't know. He may drop. There's the rankings kind of got them all over the place. Some of them do. But Cooley and Wright, I think, are 1-2 unless something drastic happens. But yeah, just to kind of go through before I ask Greg about this question is Ottawa Senators got Matthew Savoy at 4. Joakim Kemmel went to the Sabres at 5. Flyers got Juraj Slafkovsky at 6. 7 went David Juracek to the New Jersey Devils. Greg, I want to talk to you about number 8, which Columbus Blue Jackets, but they got that pick from your Chicago Blackhawks in the Seth Jones trade. What do you think about the Brad Lambert pick that the Blue Jackets got that Peter gave them? Do you think that the Blackhawks would have been better off not having Seth Jones to be able to pick a guy like Lambert, or what do you think?
That's something that's going to make a really good article in about 3 years when we can really look back and see who won this trade. I think first off, if the Blue Jackets do take Lambert, they're at 8. I think they're getting a top 5 talent at number 8. So I think it'd be a really good pick. I like Lambert a lot. I know we've talked about him a lot and his issues and all that stuff, but I think he's a top 5 hockey player. And so that would be good. So if you break it down at that point, if that's who they get, they would but they would have gotten Adam Boquist, Cole Sillinger, and Brad Lambert for Seth Jones. On paper, that looks lopsided, but again, we can't tell. I mean, if you look at what's going on this year, Adam Boquist has 7 goals and 14 points, and he's a -10 in just 17 minutes of ice time a night. Not exactly number 1 defenseman material. That's what the Blackhawks were worried about him, and they might be right on that. Compared to Jones, who's got 3 goals and 29 points, and he's playing over 26 minutes a night. So if you just compare at the end, those guys, Blackhawks are way ahead. Sillinger was a real nice pick. He's actually been in the NHL the whole year. He's got 6 goals and 13 points this year, but you combine Boquist and Sillinger's points, it's still 2 less than what Jones has produced by himself on, not a great team. So you throw Lambert in that mix, obviously you get 3 young players for 1 guy. That's a win. We're going to have to see how this shakes out in a couple of years to see what's that. But the Blackhawks got what they wanted. They wanted a guy entering the prime of his career who's a number 1 defenseman. And yes, you hear it all the time. People just wait in on Blackhawks social media. They just wait for something bad to happen while Seth Jones is on the ice just to rip him apart. But he does so many things that don't show up on score sheets that just he's a really, really good defenseman. He's the best defenseman this team has. It's not even close. People are gonna complain to the end of days about the contract he got. First, not his fault. Yell at the guy that signed him to that contract if you don't like it. Nobody in their right mind is going to get an offer and go, you know what? I think you're paying me too much. I'll take half of that and be happy. That's insane. Nobody's ever going to do that. He's getting paid what a number 1 defenseman gets paid this day on the market. And he may not be the best defenseman in the NHL, but he is the Blackhawks' number 1 defenseman. So you're paying market value. You're getting exactly what you're paying for here. We'll see how this breaks down in a couple of years. 5-6 years from now, it might not be so good. But right now, I think it's the Blackhawks are getting the better of it now. It's not making a great impact, in the standings or anything like that. But these are the types of trades you have to look back at 4, 5, 6 years later and see the long-term effects. And we'll see where we're at. But it's going to be fun to track. And it definitely looks like the Blue Jackets have pulled a fast one, quote unquote, on the Blackhawks, but we'll see how it pays out. If Sillinger becomes a bottom 6 depth guy that scores 30 points a year and Boquist never really reaches that elite level, and Lambert, a lot of people worried that he could be a bust. If that happens, well, then the Blackhawks won this trade big time. So time will tell. We like to see, as we like to say on this show a lot, we shall see. We'll see how it works out. But I'll be tracking that for sure. And a lot of people here in Chicago too are going to be keeping tabs. Every time Adam Boquist scores a goal, Blackhawks Twitter goes crazy. So it's fun. Lots of debates, and I'll keep my tabs on that one for sure over the next couple of years. And we're going to keep on rolling. I'm going to throw this one to Matt. Give your vocal cords a little break here, but you still have to answer the question. But you had me talk about the Blackhawks. You're our Canucks guy here and the hockey writers. And they, as you've said many times, they gave up their first round pick last season. Could have been the Gunther pick. You've expressed your disappointment in that many times. We're not going to get you on that, but what are your thoughts with Danila Yurov going to the Canucks according to this mock draft? Would you be happy with that pick, or do you want to see the Canucks go someplace else?
Well, I mean, the thing is about Yurov, he's got a lot of skill, and the Canucks need that in their prospect pool. They just don't have a lot of it right now. And Podkolzin is the last Russian that they draft, or I guess Klimovich is Belarusian, but he's not in that. Podkolzin's the last Russian they drafted in that first round, and Klimovich is not a first round pick either. But they haven't had one since that pick. If they were able to get Yurov, I think I'd be pretty happy. I mean, he's that skill and that ability to be a game changer, I think, is something the Canucks need in their prospect pool. They need more elite talent just in general. I mean, I don't care what type of player, what player it is. If it's a guy that has skill that could be a top 6 forward for the Canucks in the future, they need it. And, there's just that, yes, Pettersson's young. Yes, Höglander's young and all that stuff, but they need more. I mean, it's not like these guys are going to get to a point where it's going to be they're the prime, and the Canucks. We just don't want the Canucks to have that point where you get to that lull where this, when the Sedins left and there was like no one to take over, and it's good that Pettersson came along, because I think the Canucks were going to be in real trouble if he wasn't what he turned out to be. So I think having a guy like Yurov into that prospect pool is what the Canucks need. And if they do end up with the 10th overall pick at the end of all this, that would be awesome. So getting a guy like Yurov into the system, I'm okay with it. I mean, yes, he hasn't done a lot of production, but he's got that skill level, and I think he'd be a great addition to the Canucks prospect pool for sure. So yeah, so that's 1 to 10. Before we move on, I just want to remind you that the sponsor of this show is our Olympic coverage at the Hockey Writers, both the men's and women's tournaments over there. So if you want to keep tabs on all the different players that are over there, prospects of your team, players that we used to play for your team. There's quite a few former NHLers that used to play prominent roles for NHL teams. So if you want to kind of watch them again, I'm sure they had their favorite, their fans when they were in the NHL. So definitely take a look at the Hockey Writers. We'll have different stories about them, what they've done before, after they've been in the NHL. So take a look at the Olympic coverage over at thehockeywriters.com. And so that's over there. Let's move on to the 11 to 30. We won't list everyone. That could be a little bit, but you can take a look at the article at the Hockey Writers. But let's just dive into a few picks here. Peter, Nazar went to Detroit. Is he being undervalued, given his rank? He's 17th among North American skaters. He went to the Detroit Red Wings, according to your mock draft, at number 11. What do you think about him? He's, like you said, he's a little bit undervalued, I think, going into here.
Yeah, when Central Scouting released the rankings, I was a little shocked to see Frank Nazar not even in that top 15. This is a player that's like even cracking top 10s on some early draft rankings, or he's a player that's continuing to move up. And this is a guy who has a lot of speed, a lot of quickness. He's very swift with his skating, excellent hands, very flashy, and also a really good shot. He already has 42 points with the national development team, leading that squad with 35 games already. So for him to have the significant impact that he's having on this team right now with his display of I don't know if he has a nickname or not, but I like to call him the Flash, because he's that quick with everything that he does. The fact that he's ranked 17th, I think that putting him at 11th with the Detroit Red Wings fits the role in the direction that they want to go. They have someone or two really great wingers in Lucas Raymond, and Jonathan Berggren. They already have a stalwart on defensive, Simon Edvinsson and Sebastian Cossa in net. Granted, they do need a centerman. They don't have that, or they're not in a good range to try and take one because most of them are in the top 10. And if they try to reach somebody, maybe you could try and go with Jonathan Lekkerimaki as well, which I know we'll get into very shortly. But he's a center and right wing, has been used on the right wing quite a bit. So if you're reaching for a center, you may not want to do that, but take the next best player available. And that's going to be Frank Nazar, because he fits everything in the direction that the Detroit Red Wings want to go in: high end, quick, offensively driven, and, pretty underrated defensive game as well. He's very deceptive. And I think that's the reason why I put him with the Red Wings, because he just seemed like the perfect fit. And jumping over to Lekkerimaki, as we just mentioned, the Sharks took William Eklund last year, and, they're heading back to Sweden with the 13th overall pick that I thought seemed like a really good fit for them, given the fact that, really good pool already, but drafting Lekkerimaki would probably set them over the top. Matt, how fun would this be for Sharks fans if they were able to see that connection with Eklund and Lekkerimaki, given how they're already on the same Djurgården's team right now at the moment?
Yeah, that'd be a pretty big thing for the Sharks to grab him. They grabbed Eklund where they shouldn't have in general. I mean, he shouldn't have dropped it where he did. Getting Lekkerimaki, I mean, it's not as big of a reach, or not a reach, but it's not as big of a thing if they got him at 13, I think. But, adding him to a pool that's pretty strong, and adding a guy that's played with Eklund on the same junior team and is pretty big, I think. He's got great skill. He's got, like you said, your mock draft, he's got great shot. He's able to drive the offense. Being able to play that, sounds like Sharks adding that to their system would be amazing, and not good for the teams in the division, because this division already has a lot of skill. I mean, they may not be the strongest right now, but there's just so much prospects, and adding another one to their pool like that, 1-2 punch, Eklund, Lekkerimaki, I mean, that'd be pretty good. Pretty exciting for just us hockey fans. So if the Sharks got him at 13, I think they'd be pretty happy. And I think that's a pick that they actually realistically could do, because they do go to that European side a lot. You got quite a few guys that are on the team that are not Swedish, but they're, from the European side. So it's going to be interesting to see if they actually would pick him at that point, but it's not out of the realm possibility. But I like that pick for the Sharks for sure. Let's go to you, Greg, on this next one. There's a lot of names from the U.S. national development team that fall after the top 10. Which player looks to be the best in this mock draft that you see here? I mean, who's the best guy that you think?
Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of Frank Nazar, as we just talked about too, but there's a guy that slipped pretty far down that I'm high on, and that is defenseman Seamus Casey, who Peter has going 27th to the Pittsburgh Penguins, which I think would be just an amazing pick if that actually happened. I think he's probably going to go high. At least he should go higher than that. But man, if the Penguins can get a guy like Casey, he's the perfect fit for that team. When you look at all the success they've had over the past couple of decades, a lot of that had to do with because they had a guy like Chris Letang on the back end. And this is a guy, I'm not saying he's going to be the next Chris Letang, but he's cut from the same cloth. He's a really good mobile two-way defenseman, great puck distributor. He's that modern day NHL defenseman. Can move the puck up the ice, great offensive ability. With the under 17 US team last year, he was their leading defenseman with 36 points in 46 games. He had 8 goals. And then he's obviously bumped up to the U18 team this year, and he's not getting as much power play time as he did last year, where he racked up a lot of points, because he's kind of taken a back seat to another defenseman I'm high on in Lane Hudson. But even with the decreased power play time, he's still putting up relatively same numbers. He's got 21 points in 33 games so far for the U18 team. So, great puck handling skills, great skater. He's got the tool to be, that top NHL type of defender that's exciting all three zones of the ice. And that's what you need in today's game. Just look at the best young defensemen in the league right now. Guys like Cale Makar and Adam Fox, they can do it everywhere on the ice. And this is a kid that has the potential to be along those lines. And if the Penguins can get him that late, they need young defensemen big time. They're definitely an aging team, and to plug someone like that in would be a great pick. If it was up to me, he wouldn't be there at 27. I think he should be a top 15 pick. I think that's how good I think he is. So if he falls that low, man, the Penguins don't run to the podium and make that pick.
I was on Hollows and Growlers earlier, and I see a lot of Quinn Hughes in him. His skating ability is just, and the way he can move and turn on a dime, that the same thing Hughes could do. He just reminded me, I thought I was watching Quinn Hughes for a second, but a few of his plays. So, and Hughes went in the top 10, so, Seamus Casey, he's got so much of that mobility and smarts and stuff like that. So being able to get him, that Pittsburgh was able to get him there, that's a pretty big coup, I think, if they were able to get him at that point. So yeah, let's finish this off with just a quick fire here. One selection that you'd love to see happen from this bout, if it actually was the draft, which one do you actually would love to see? Peter, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Sabres selection in Ty Nelson, 20th overall, that they got from the Vegas Golden Knights. And this, looking at their system, they already have two strong left-hand puck-moving defensemen in Rasmus Dahlin and are obviously Owen Power right now, but they don't have a solid right-handed defenseman. And usually you don't draft based on need, but when you're getting a solid defenseman in the process in Ty Nelson with someone who has great skating abilities, great puck movement, a hard shot, where he just recently broke a puck in half recently. So, he's got a powerful shot. Owen Power has a powerful shot. Rasmus Dahlin has a powerful shot. So you got three defensemen on the back end right now with top-notch shots. And especially, he's a little bit on the smaller side, but he plays a bigger game than what he already is. And he shows no fear. He's not afraid to mix it up. And to see the fight that he has, it reminds me of Torrey Krug in a sense. Mm-hmm. Smaller player, but still has that bite and that finesse to their game. So if they were to go and or if Ty Nelson is available, the Buffalo Sabres should not hesitate, because he has the potential to be an impact player. And already right now, top 5 in OHL scoring, and he's a rookie with 30 points in 39 games. So pretty impressive considering he didn't play a game at all last year. So that's one pick I would like to see happen.
Yeah, that's a definite big thing. Sabres able to get him there. Greg, who you got that you'd love to see happen at this mock draft? This was the real thing.
Well, if this was the real thing, I want to see a Blackhawks pick somewhere in there. Somehow force your way back into the first round. But if we're going off of this list, I'm going to butcher the name again, even though I've practiced it all morning. Ivan Miroshnichenko to the Islanders at 12. That would be a fabulous pick for the Islanders, who,
yes,
we've talked here. I think he's the best Russian prospect in the draft. I know Yurov goes higher than him and he's ranked higher, but I'd rather have Miroshnichenko. He's exactly what the Islanders need. The Islanders, man, I know they're the Barry Trotz. We're going to bore you to death and grind you down and win 2-1, but they got to get some goal scorers. And this kid is a goal scorer. He's got size. He's got speed. He's got an NHL worthy release. He can score from anywhere on the ice. He's an impactful player. And can you imagine a guy like him and a Matt Barzal on the same line or the same power play? I mean, all of a sudden the Islanders, who we know can play great defense, they can figure out a way to score 3 to 4 goals a night. They're going to be hard to beat. And this is a kid that really could be a turning point for that franchise. I'm a big fan of his. And I think the Islanders is a perfect fit if he's there at 12. Again, I would have picked him a lot higher, but we all know that, once you get past those first couple picks, teams start to draft based on need, not necessarily the best player on the draft. So he's a guy that definitely could fall there. And if that's what happens, man, the Islanders home run in the first round, getting the best player at that spot and exactly what they need.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty big thing if Mishashenko went that low. I have him in the that top 10 when my rankings finally get released here. I'm gonna go with a Sabres pick as well. They got a few first round picks this draft, and probably get more. I'm sure if they're gonna try to trade some guys at the deadline here. I'm gonna go with the one that Rutger McGorty at 30. I mean, this is a pick they got for the Florida Panthers, and I believe it's the Reinhardt trade that they got this one in. So getting McGorty, who I think is a top 15 talent in my mind, go down to 30, and Sabres getting him is ridiculous. So, I mean, he's got tons of skill, and this is what the Sabres need in their forward group. He could be a great, power forward in the NHL. He's got creativity like crazy. I mean, he make some of these moves that he makes at the USHL level is pretty crazy. I think he could be a great power forward in the NHL, and I've just loved watching highlights of this guy. So if they were able to get him at 30 and just almost to the second round, I don't know, like McGorty going that low, I don't think he's going to go that low when it comes down to it. But the Sabres are able to get him there. That's pretty good. So I'm going to go with McGorty there. So that's the mock draft, or the first of many. I'm sure, Peter, we got doing quite a few. I'm going to be doing some as well once I get into get over this sickness that I've got. So, but yeah, so there'll be a lot more coming up. The draft coverage, our profiles will be getting released probably in about a month. Or not a month, whatever the trade deadline, that's in about a couple months still. So so right after that trade deadline, you'll start seeing those profiles just shooting out on the Hockey Writers. So make sure you're keeping an eye on that. So let's finish off the show with what we always do is our prospects of the week. Greg, we'll start with you. Who's your prospect of the week?
All right, I am going to give some love to a goalie. We don't talk enough goalies on this show, I don't think. So I am going to go with not just because he's got an awesome name, but because he's been an awesome player. Magnus Krona. I'm sure you probably pronounce that a little different in Sweden, but that's what we're going with here. Magnus Krona, of course, from the college ranks with Denver. He was originally a 5th round pick by the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2018, but he was traded earlier this past spring to the San Jose Sharks for Frederick Clausen. So he's now a Sharks prospect, and man, he has been awesome of late. He had a stretch recently of 3 consecutive shutouts. He shut out Omaha and then back-to-back shutouts against Colorado College. And then that shutout streak came to an end last night, but he still picked up a win. He's hasn't lost in 8 games, and he only has 1 loss in his last 16 games, dating back to November the 12th. So, he's playing some pretty good talent. A couple of those wins and one of those shutouts that he has this season came against Minnesota Duluth. So it's not like he's doing this against weak competition by any means necessary. So he's been red hot. He had a stretch where he lost 3 straight games. And then since then, as I said, he's only lost once in his last 16. So I think the Sharks got to be happy with what they're seeing there. That's a franchise that definitely needs goaltending help, I think. I mean, that's pretty much all but 4 teams in the NHL right now. But, that was a team that we thought was going to be a shoe-in to take a guy like a Jesper Wallstead in last year's draft. But, with Krona coming up the ranks, it'll be interesting to see how he keeps developing. And he's in his junior year right now at Denver. So we'll see what happens. He's not signed to any kind of contract, so maybe he's performing good enough this year to get that entry-level contract, and maybe he gets to the AHL in the next season or 2. But he's my prospect of the week. He's been rock solid out there in Denver, so we'll see if he can keep that up.
Yeah, goaltenders don't get enough love on our prospects of the week, so definitely great to have a goaltender there at one point. Peter, who's your prospect of the week?
This has been long overdue. We talked about him quite a bit, and my prospect of the week is drumroll Shane Wright. For all the criticisms that he's been getting about his consistency in point production and how it's not the same level of John Tavares and Connor McDavid, he's starting to pick up right now, and he had two pretty solid, highlight reel plays in the past week or so, including a beautiful assist, no look backhand pass to Martin Chromiak. I believe it was yesterday. If you haven't checked that out, but just his overall production since January 18th, in his last 6 games played, he has 13 points, majority of them being assists, including a 4-point outing against Oshawa, the game that was played on the 28th. Again, there's a reason why he's first overall. It may not be where it should be higher. It should be at the same level where he was scoring 39 goals in his rookie season and on pace to break John Tavares's rookie record. But you know what, considering that he's been in and out of not necessarily in and out of the lineup, but there have been quite a bit of pauses. He's only played 5 or 6 games at the World U18 Championship, and the fact that he's still producing 43 points in 30 games, that has him in the top 20 in the OHL in scoring. Again, he's moving up there. We'd like to see more, absolutely, but that consistency is starting to come together, and he deserves my prospect of the week, and he's still my first overall pick.
Yeah, Shane Wright hasn't been a prospect of the week, I don't think, yet. So great to see him on that now. I'm going to go to the same route as I did last week and stay with the trend of undersized players and go with Kyle Sirkovic from the Saskatoon Blades. Undrafted, I believe in the last 2 drafts he's been undrafted, which is kind of surprising what he's doing in the WHL right now. He's leading the league in points. He is not. Matthew Savoy is no longer the top point getter in the WHL right now. I think he's 3rd now, and Sirkovic has, if I'm saying his name right, has actually surpassed him, and he's now leading the charge with 50, I believe it's 57 points right now, 57 points in 37 games. He's on quite a tear the last few games. He's got, I believe, he's on an 8-game point streak, or 5. So yeah, 8-game point streak. He had a 5-point night, a hat trick and 2 assists on end of December. He had a 4-point night on the 22nd, which is not that long ago. This guy's just put up the points. He's one of the Saskatoon Blades, one of the best playmakers on the team. He's got a great shot. He's quick. He's creative. Great puck handling skills. He's good defensively. I'm not sure why he's not been drafted. I mean, his size is 5'7". Yes, he's small, but he deserves to be, drafted at some point. I think he should be drafted this year in his last year. And even if he's not drafted this year, which I believe would be his last time, a team better take a flyer on him, because I think he's got some good potential to be. I mean, you don't know. I mean, he may not end up being anything, but having that skill and maybe one-dimensional at times with his offense, but leading the WHL is no small feat in points. So I think keep an eye on him in this draft to see if a team actually takes a chance on him in the later rounds. What do you got to lose in a 6th, 7th round pick of this guy? I mean, come on, this is where you go for skill and risky picks. So I'm going to go with Kyle Sirkovic, give him some love on this show, and hopefully scouts are watching, and we'll see. So so that's the show. Another show, another prospect quarter in the books. As the draft gets closer, as our trade deadline gets closer, our prospects will be moving around, I'm sure. At the deadline, there's prospects that move, picks that move. We're going to have some teams that may, your Chicago Blackhawks, Greg, may get a 1st-round pick. Hopefully trade Marc-Andre Fleury for that. We'll see if that happens, but there's going to be some picks moving around, so we'll keep you up to date on that on this show and at thehockeywriters.com. Before we finish off, if we haven't convinced you to go check out that Olympic coverage yet, I'm going to say it again. Make sure you're checking up on our Olympic coverage over at the Hockey Writers, headed up by Greg. The coverage, there's a lot of stuff already out there in the roster previews, rosters. Stay up to date with the Olympics, because yes, the NHL players aren't there, but there's a lot of prospects. There's a lot of former NHLers. Still going to be great hockey. I mean, if you love hockey, you're still going to be able to watch some great stuff. Yes, it's going to be at weird hours of the day, but definitely we'll keep you up to date at the Hockey Writers. If you don't watch the games, there'll be recaps. You can take a look at. So thanks to everyone for watching another episode of the Prospect Corner. For Greg, Peter, this is Matthew, and we'll see you next time.